You might not know this about me, Lee Miller, but I have biked. I've spent a lot of time in my life biking around cities, and I realized that a lot of the biking I've been doing around cities in my life has been highly. I've taken a lot of risks while on my bike.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. And the other day I took a bit of a risk. So this is 56-year-old, not quite as nimble,
Yeah.
agile, and I almost got hit by a hearse.
I don't quite have words.
Just as, anyway, it's fine. And I did have a good laugh at myself, and I also thought that my father would have just loved me coming home and say, "Dad, I almost got hit by a hearse." This is a podcast in which two friends talk about the pleasures, absurdities, and imperfections of being human. I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller. Welcome to Midlifing.
It's been a hard week for me in lots of different ways. And the reasons for the hardness or the difficulty are not important at all. But it did make me think about stress, and it made me think about my mother, who used to say that she felt stress in her stomach or in her gut. It revealed to herself. While some people, it's like head stuff. And it made me think, where do you notice stress?
I'm your mum.
In your stomach?
In my stomach, immediately. So,
like pit tightness. How would you describe it? Is it very particular, or like?
It's just. I mean, it's not a pit. I would just say it's the equivalent of. It feels quite like food poisoning.
Oh, or like you need to get it out of you.
Yeah.
You need to evacuate the stress.
Yep. I don't know which way it's going to go, but it feels like food poisoning. It feels like, it's not, because it's not as, it's more psychic than it is physical. So I know that I know that I'm not ill, but it goes to a place that is very like, I'm either going to have appalling diarrhea or I'm going to vomit and vomit and vomit. And I don't do either of those things, but that's the feeling in my body. It's abject.
And what about, it sounds like that's a switch, like it's Boolean, but are there any sign? So here's an example where it's taken me years to realize that I get stressed before I travel. I probably didn't when I was younger, but that the day before I'll notice particular things where I go, but it's not really super clear.
Yeah.
Not like you're talking there. Are there gradations or degrees of where you've noticed it differently, or does it have to reach a sort of threshold where you go, boom, oh yeah, I'm very stressed?
So I think what happens is this kind of a low-lying bubble of cortisol that is just like happening. Because it's interesting.
Show title, by the
week.
way. I was sort of racking my brain for trying to remember, two things. One, the difference between stress and anxiety. And I seem to think stress is something more long term, but don't quote me on that. And then anxiety was something about the difference in your perceived difference between the thing you have to do and your capacity to do it.
Yeah.
What interests me about this is that it's why I asked the question, which is about the kind of the build up to that. At what point did we become aware of something being? And I think mine's kind of spine. It's definitely kind of upper spine, cervical spine. Right. So sort of tightness in the shoulders, a little bit in the neck, shoulders particularly, but then also very much chest. So breath as it gets stronger. So it's amazing because taking a deep breath really, really relieves it. So it's a sort of physical response, forgetting about the thing that's causing the anxiety, the anxiety. I'll say it's because it's sort of located there around my kind of thorax, the sort of middle part of my chest, that breathing and focusing on the breath really relieves it quite enormously or quite amazingly. But yeah, I'm not a stomach, and I'm definitely not a head person. Never had a migraine. I mean, when I get a headache, it's so rare. I kind of go, "What's that?"
Wow, I definitely get headaches, but I don't equate them to stress. I think it's just, usually for me it's dehydration. I've forgotten to drink.
Right. I mean, I should say I'm probably exaggerating. I've probably had more than 6, given that I'm 56 years old. But they're very rare. Like I don't. It's not like have some friends who have migraines, and that's lights out for 3 days kind of thing.
Yeah. The people I know who have migraines, there is nothing I want more than to be able to take it away from them, because I can still function with my stomach. It's like all it does is it feels horrible, but it's not. It doesn't stop me focusing. I mean, it perhaps makes me make poor choices, but I guess that's just life. But it doesn't.
All those emails that you got sent. Wow, they were pretty acerbic. Those emails you sent in that period of time.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, migraines, that those serious migraines that people they can be a week with their curtains closed and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
can you imagine?
I just for those sweet souls, I wish them nothing but love, because oh God Almighty, that would be, I couldn't. No. Yeah. Oh. So for you, because for me, I think, as I said, it drops into my stomach like a bomb. There's been a low-lying level of something, and then it's just like, oh, this is too much now. There's too much cortisol. Now I'm ill. Not ill, but I feel poorly.
Yeah.
For you, are you sensing a sort of a slow ratcheting up of tension so you can feel it coming on?
Yeah, so there's definitely situations where, of course, just all of a sudden, that's basically almost kind of adrenal in the sense of fight or flight, kind of those sorts of situations. But no, I think I'm talking more about that kind of low-grade stress, which is over long periods of time, where you start to recognize that, which of course is harder to recognize because the sort of the changes in time are not so they're not obvious. They're occurring within what would be technically the difference lineman for your capacity to perceive stress. That is, the change is smaller than your capacity to perceive the change, and I think those ones. I think I have reasonably good strategies for recognizing that there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And so it just it basically pushes me to pay attention to how I'm feeling in the body. So it's not that I think I'm noticing those things first in my body. It's more that I recognize there's a lot going on. But it fell over horrendously, funnily, and not funny at all, funnily, at all this week in an Italian lesson, where I do think I've been under. There's been a lot in lots of different ways, sort of coming at me. And no, I think it's fine. It hasn't been easy, but I feel like I'm okay. And then I basically had. I could only describe it as a panic attack, a very mild. I know, a very mild, like nothing where I know how debilitating they can be, but where I just went, where that feeling of your world kind of just basically it narrows, and it like it's like my capacity to think and do anything just stopped.
Yeah.
And my poor teacher, and it was about something we were doing in the lesson, in the sense that it was triggered by that. Not that wasn't the reason for it, but that's what provoked it. And poor Laura, my teacher, she was just. I feel like I'm having a panic attack, and this is not working right now. I just need to stop. And she said, should we switch to English? I said, no, that's the last thing I want to do, because that feels like it would be like it's a feeling. It came out of a feeling of like taking so many steps backwards, where I go, oh my God, I'm having to do this again. Surely I'm better than this. It's that bullshit stuff, right? And it's such just. And then the idea of going into English, like, no, absolutely not. But yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. It really knocked me around for the certainly that the rest of that day and the next day. I was like, oh God. Well, partly out of sort of slightly shame and also sort of the feeling of how do you say disappointment in my response. It's so weird, eh? So weird. Anyway, yeah, that was.
Well, first of all, I've only had one panic attack in my life, and we talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah, that was the COVID-related one, wasn't it?
That was the COVID-related one, yeah.
I think I raised the stakes by talking about a panic attack whilst underwater.
You did, yeah. So I feel your pain. I'm so sorry. And something occurs to me about... So we were talking about you last night on our dog walk.
You and Jeffrey, or you and Bob?
Jeffrey wasn't overly interested because he'd found half a sandwich, and so he was quite interested in seeing if there was the other half of the sandwich lying around somewhere. So he was not massively in the conversation. He just he chipped in every now and then and went, "Oh yeah, Simon, yeah, the Australian." I said, "No, he's from New Zealand." He went, same shit, different day." And he just went, "Lamingtons, right?" And I'm like, "You're just naming food from the other side of the world that you want to eat. Is that right?" And he's like, yeah, pavlova, I've eaten that. I would eat that again. Yeah. Australian and New Zealand cuisine, I would give it a solid 8. What's lower down? What's the lower down the spectrum, Jeff? Yeah, nothing is below an 8, honestly, to Jeff. It's like,
it's like HRC funding schemes. You can't. It's out of 8, but you can't go lower than 6.
Exactly. That's Jeff for sure. No, Bob and I were walking. So what happened yesterday was
Thank you, Jeffrey.
So having said that last week, the week that has just gone, was hard, I ended the week on what can only be described as an absolute high, a total bubble of joy.
Oh.
In that we had, at Falmouth, the spring PhD symposium. So we have 3 a year, autumn, spring, summer. We have 3 symposia a year, and various students give presentations on their research and their practice, and we get a keynote in, and there's lunch. It's lovely. It's an absolutely lovely time. And we've got people who are beaming in from all over the world. So
it's hybrid, is it?
Yeah, it's hybrid, yeah. So we've got people, we had about 20 people in the space and maybe another 15 or so online. Really lovely, really. So it's not the entire PhD cohort. I mean, those who were later towards the...
finishing,
finishing. They're a bit busy, but these are people sort of in their first and second, maybe third or fourth years if they're working part time. And it was just lovely. We started off with this great scholar from Manchester Met who was the keynote, and he was talking about body horror and the Gothic, and it was just gorgeous. And we just had some really lovely papers, and there was lots of really smashing, overlapping stuff. But the day started so well because I had decided I was going to take the very, very early, even though it's the most expensive, train into work so I could just really sit and reread the papers. Because they publish the papers, they share the papers in advance, so that what we do is we've got a 5-minute précis of the paper and then a 25-minute conversation, rather than somebody just reading the paper out loud. What a good idea. Oh, it's so lovely.
Having to listen to people read out papers. Oh.
Exactly. Well, it's like, we've got eyes, we can go away and read them, and they do a little précis to just sort of go, usually what they're doing is they're saying, these are the things that I was worried about, and I'd like you to attend to these in the question.
So they're sort of shaping the conversation.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love the sound of that.
It's super lovely, and it is absolutely... We stole it from the University of Helsinki, from one of the summer schools that we did there. Gosh, years ago.
Yeah, I remember you were going with a year for a while, weren't you?
Yeah.
That was before you had a place. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So off we go onto the train, and I left the house at, which I often do, even if I'm driving or if I'm getting the train. I left the house at around about 6 o'clock, and yesterday it was literally freezing. So it was so cold.
Yeah, it was freezing. Yeah, it was really cold here.
So I got my mittens, I got my hats, I got my wool coat, and I put my scarf on. And I chose the scarf that I had knitted, because the scarf that I had knitted is too big. It's huge and it's really thick. And it was exactly what I wanted because it was like, oh, it's a cold day.
Is this the first time you've worn something that you've made yourself?
I think it's the first time it's the first time I've put it properly in, and no, maybe not. Maybe it's the second time, but it's certainly the first time that I've needed to.
Right. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
It felt like it was a good idea to put it on. So on I pop it, I get on the train, and the carriage that I'm on, has no heating.
Oh.
And I was so happy that I had my massive, massive scarf. So my massive, massive scarf, which when I unfold it, because I fold it in half, becomes effectively like a blanket. Mm-hmm. And so I've got the blanket wrapped around my shoulders so I can take my coat off so I can still feel the benefit when I get out of the train and all of that sort of stuff. And so already the scarf has filled me with happiness. I made this. It has warmed me. I get off the train, I walk up the hill, and because of the timings of the train, I walk almost straight into the beginning of the symposium. Usually I would have half an hour, 45 minutes to prepare myself, but I'd given myself the time on the train. So there's not stress. I had a lovely, lovely walk up the hill. Get into the room that the symposium is being held in, and one of our PhD students immediately shoots up off the chair, walks over with purpose, and grabs the scarf, and she says, "I've been waiting to see this. I've been waiting to see how you're doing." And she unfolds the scarf and she looks at it with real intensity, and she goes, "Oh, your tension is gorgeous." So not only do I go into a fabulous day of papers, I go in riding this high of a fellow knitter, a much more advanced knitter than me, telling me that my tension is good. And tension's a tricky thing to get right. So I was like, oh, fucking hell. Yeah. I get on the train, come home, and Bob meets me at the train station. I promise this is all going to make sense to why I was talking about you in a second. And it will take us back to your panic attack. I get off the train. Bob meets me with Jeffrey at the train station, and she says, "Oh, we've been having a walk, having a lovely time. Catherine and Roger are here." Catherine and Roger are Jill, our next door neighbour's daughter, and I guess son-in-law. Mm-hmm. I say guess because I don't think they're married, so daughter's partner, but they've been together for a long time. Anyway, she said, "When you're free, you've got to go round and show her your knitting." Just to be clear, it was Catherine and Jill who taught me how to knit about 6 or 7 weeks ago. Yeah. And this is the first time it was the lesson. And this is the first time I've seen Catherine since I've knitted. And I've now knitted multiple items since then.
You've now actually pretty much done nothing else, which is why you're behind on work stuff, really, isn't it? That's all you've done for 6 weeks.
Well, they were out having dinner at the Indian at the top of town. Cafe Mumbai, if anybody's interested. Very good Indian restaurant. Please help yourself.
Did you take your scarf up there to show them?
I did. I walked past and I marched into the restaurant, interrupted, and I said, "Catherine, look at this." And Catherine went, "That is beautiful." And she looked genuinely shocked that it looked as good as it did.
So you exceeded her. You exceeded her expectations.
Exactly. So that led to me and Bob walking away and going, what is it? Not like, how dare she not think I'm good? Because that's not what that was not what I was thinking. My thinking was, what is it about me that wants to be good at this thing? And then we said that it's like Simon. Simon doesn't need to have a micro bakery, but he has, because he has to be good at the hobby. So the hobby becomes something which is more than the hobby, and it has to be something that you become an expert in. And we were reflecting on the type of people who gravitate towards academic work probably need to be experts, and they probably need to excel in the things that they are doing. So Bob didn't just kind of go and read about acupuncture because she needed to find out about it for one article that she was writing. She did 4 years of training and still has an acupuncture practice because once, about 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, she was thinking about somebody who'd written something about the idea of urban acupuncture, and she said it looks more like keyhole surgery, but what do I know about that, because I don't know anything about acupuncture. 5 years later, she's a qualified acupuncturist, and she's been doing that since. And then we were going through all of the people that we know who go like, oh yeah, that academic Jungian analyst, that academic Thai massage therapist, that academic Ashtanga yoga teacher, and you just start to go, all of these people that we know who have these weird side hustles that are not about making money at all, but they're about expertise. And
so
that doesn't surprise me that you have this panic attack in your Italian class where you are expecting in your body, you are expecting to be expert. And not because you're smug or smart-arsed or anything like that, but because because you've put the effort in, you've put the time in, and so you don't understand. It's like, I put the effort in, I put the time in, and my bread is better than bread that you can buy in X, Y, and Z shops. That's a true fact.
Yes.
Yeah? I've gone to yoga classes and I have said, I've been taught by these people and this is what they do for a living. I am better than them.
I mean, there's no question about the expectations. It was a real sort of sense of, I would just say sort of almost a sort of disappointment in myself, or sort of shaming. But the shame was also about my response to it, because, it was really hard for her, because she's like, what the fuck, this guy's an adult. It was that kind of feeling of, anyway, it was horrible. But it was also horrible. It was horrible, but also fascinating. Fascinating. I'm a bit nervous about, the lesson on Monday, just because we're going to spend the half hour going on about that experience. and in a part of which wants to go, let's just move on. Let's just go back to the subjunctive.
I've spent this last week thinking about my urge to be liked. And yesterday, before we get to your addendum, there was we had a lunch laid on, which we always do for the symposium. And we always ever so slightly, not massively, but we always ever so slightly overcater, because we never know if supervisors are going to turn up and things like that. So we get a couple more sandwiches. And there was a couple more sandwiches left over. Exactly. And I didn't want to waste them. So I started walking around the building trying to find people who might want to come and have sandwiches. Obviously, I work in this building, so I know everybody. But there was that really strong sense of me, like, wanting them to... I felt like my mum. Like, it's got to be eaten. It's got to be eaten. We don't want to waste. You can take a doggy back home. And it's just like, oh, my God, this is so much... Being the child of somebody who was brought up in the war and with rationing.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. I hate that sort of way.
Yeah. So there's the idea of waste is just wrong, but then the other thing is, you should
see me scraping out a jam jar, man.
Oh, don't even get me started. I will put hot water in the jam jar and then see if I can make something with the water.
Okay, you win.
No,
that is a great idea, though. I love that idea.
It is, yeah. I usually put it in a smoothie or something. Anyway,
raspberry jam tea.
Ooh, delicious raspberry jam tea. But yeah, so then the other bit is like me just like going, they'll like me a little bit more if I give them a sandwich and some cake. I hate myself. Anyway, that was not what we were going to say. You had a little addendum.
Oh, it's a tiny little one. It was just I read this morning that do you know that cows with names produce more milk than cows that don't have names?
I did not know that.
Isn't that cool?
Oh my God! So
talk about the need to feel cared for and safe, and the naming, because of course the naming of a cow, I imagine, just changes people's behaviour towards that cow, basically.
Yeah, because it's no longer Milk Machine; it's Daisy.
It's Daisy or Kenneth. Oh no, not Kenneth, probably.
I don't think Kenneth would be a good name for a cow that you're milking. You'd have to be doing something else to a cow called Kenneth.
I don't know why you're so gender fixated. I just don't get it.
I mean, you're right. I am, aren't I? I feel a little bit embarrassed about that now. You can call anybody you want, Kenneth. I feel a bit awful now.
No. Kenneth the cow. I mean, come on, the alliteration's there.
Yeah.
Big shout out to all our Kenneth Cow listeners. We love you.
We do. I've been knitting throughout this entire conversation.
You're fucking kidding me.
No, you're probably not shocked to hear that. I've been having the best time. This is so. I just have to tell you this because I know you don't care, but I'm going to tell you anyway. This is again part of the idea of anxiety and calming and coping. I was in a meeting the other day that was one of those high level ones where you've got to be there, but you don't really have a lot to contribute. Where you're effectively your presence is performative.
It's like no meeting I'm ever in, but yeah, I get the idea.
Oh, because you only ever go to the important meetings.
No, because I'm never an
around.
important
Right,
meetings.
okay. Well, so I do go to a fair few important meetings
Yeah,
where
yeah.
I don't necessarily. I don't. It's not that I don't need to be there because I am usually called on to do something once or twice a meeting, but a lot of the time it's like listening and agreeing and saying yes or no or whatever. And when they're online, I find them so stressful, and I don't know why, because I usually like being remote for meetings because it's like, oh, it's okay, you can like wear your pajamas on the bottom half and that sort of stuff. But these ones feel like I've got to be like mega on in a way that is much more different than when you're in the space.
I mean, that makes perfect sense to me in terms of our evolution and, you know, the way in which we read body cues and all that stuff. That's just disappears out the window. So our sort of sensitivity to what's going on is zero.
Exactly. And
You
these
stumble
are the
over
ones
timings and all that. Just like,
yeah. And
horrible.
that's it. And it's because these are the ones where the timings for me have to be right. Because it's not like, you know, if I'm chairing a meeting that's remote, it's like, well, I'm in charge and it doesn't matter if I'm a bit like wonky and and I'm pretty chill about everything and was like, oh, don't worry. Yep. Go on, carry on. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's fine. But this is not that. But I now keep a set of knitting sticks and a ball of wool on my desk just underneath the camera view, and I just gently knit in those meetings where I'm stressed, and I find that I can hear what's being said much more clearly, and I can give responses.
It's beautiful. This podcast is basically turning into months-long advertising for knitting.
Well, I mean, I think what
We
it
could
is
get
is
some knitting
month-long
sponsorship, some wool sponsorship.
Well, I think it's less about that and more about people who are struggling need to find strategies.
It's beautiful.
Because
it's beautiful.
I guess that's what's been happening.
It's really, I love that.
I
love that you do that. I really do, and I'm so glad that in this stressful situation here of you recording a podcast, you're also knitting just to keep calm and carry on.
That's just habit standing at this desk. Oh, and the other thing is, I'm now a week out of Instagram.
Oh, feels good, right?
Simon, I hadn't realised how...
it's terrible. They're terrible. It's terrible.
I'd been waking up and, like, the first thing I would do is I would just scroll for the first 10 minutes of the day.
God. Oh,
not
Lee
even
Miller.
through people I knew. It was just
and Instagram's
bullshit
not even
stories.
the worst. It's not even the terrible one as well. But
No, exactly.
horrendous.
And so, I mean, I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on X. And so Facebook was the last man standing. And I've not switched it on for... Well, what are we? Well, since Tuesday, since Tuesday morning.
I'm so glad. It's just that stuff's just.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I know.
The clarity.
Yeah, no, it's terrible.
So yeah.
Just the people are wasting lives, but wasting time, but also just that sort of sense of the way it grips our attention is just it's horrible. Anyway, let's not.
Yeah, I was going to say that's it for me. It's less about I'm not offering a critique of other people. It's more about it gripped me in a way that was really I hadn't realised how deep it was and how my thumb even now will go to the place on my screen where Instagram was.
Amazing.
Because obviously I've deleted it and it's like, oh my God, it's just so deeply embodied. And now,
I picked up my I have a moleskin notebook, quite a sort of I guess it's an A5 size, and it's where I keep all my I make notes about whenever I'm baking, and I looked at it and then tapped the front of it yesterday to see if it would wake up, but it fucking didn't.
That's so rude. It's so rude. It's so rude.
Hey, good to chat. We squeezed in a lot there, and nice to see you.
Nice to talk. See you soon. Take care. Lots of love.
Bye.